Everyone wants to take their business, their skills, to the next level. Small and mid-sized business owners have exceptional insight into how to do this. They endure and thrive because they find ways to overcome the challenges that come their way, and they can teach us valuable lessons to apply to our own companies and lives. Stephen Nooner, founder and owner of Alkali, a company with a unique process that helps businesses more effectively buy and manage their insurance programs. And Bob Gibbons, builder of Riata Commercial Realty, a real estate advisor and tenant advocate, are two prominent Metroplex businessmen who, along with their weekly guests, will ask their and your probing questions, finding impactful solutions that will help you reach for the next level. Here are your hosts, Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons.
Welcome to The Next Level, conversations that propel business. I'm your host, Stephen Nooner.
And I'm Bob Gibbons, and we are here this week with another great guest. And this week it is Joe Trizila, President and CEO of TrizCom Public Relations and Pitch PR. TrizCom PR is a full-service public relations firm founded in 2008. And Pitch PR is a division of TrizCom in partnership with the Dallas Entrepreneurial Center, the DEC, assisting startups and entrepreneurs. They have worked with all kinds of people that you've heard of: BBC, Cosmopolitan, Today Show, Chevrolet, Cadillac, GMC. Seems to be an automobile theme going on here. University of London, where she went to school. This is a bright woman. We're excited to have you on the show today and looking forward to talking to you.
Thanks so much.
Oh, and by the way, if I didn't mention it, Stephen, before you jump in and make fun of me.
Is that obvious?
Is that obvious? If you'd like to learn more about her company, please go to TrizCom.com. That's TrizCom.com.
For our audience, that is only funny because we were just joking about how we sometimes do that. So, welcome.
Thank you.
We like to start every show off with the wisdom of others, and we have a quote, and you actually provided it, and it's from Oscar Wilde. There's only one thing in the world worse than being talked about, and that is not being talked about.
Yep.
So what does that mean to you?
It means that everything we do in society and in business is public relations. Whether that's on social or just meeting somebody face-to-face or word of mouth or you see something in the news, that's public relations. And you always want to be part of the conversation because conversations are happening whether you know it or not. They're happening, and they're happening around your particular business.
So that quote to me kind of says it's better to, even if it's negative, it's better to be talked about than
Well,
forgotten.
let's not go there.
Okay, all right.
Hated but never ignored. That's Bob Gibbons' PR
I've
motto.
been talked about negatively once or twice in my life. Of course, they were always wrong, but I just want to make sure I could clarify that right
One
at
of
the
them you
beginning.
married?
Oh, ouch.
Just
Ouch.
kidding.
Dan's going to be listening. Be careful.
Yeah, what was interesting for me is that quote actually made me uncomfortable because I feel like I've been just ingrained with just
Lay low.
lay low.
Yeah, and we see that a lot. But when you read, let's just take the morning news. If you're reading a positive story about a brand or a topic, there's always going to present two sides. They have to. That's good journalism. Shoddy journalism is just presenting one fact.
Right.
But when you look at both sides, if you read the paper enough, you'll see that they quote the same sources over and over and over again. And why is that? Because it's easy.
Yeah.
And when we are so pressed for time, and journalists are even more pressed for time. Back in the day, they could work weeks on a story. Today, they're working on 10 stories at one time because they have to get it on the blog, they have to get it in the paper, they have to get it on, sometimes we even see print journalists on TV. Talking about stories. There is so much pressure to be the first one out, have the best story, and have it on the most mediums. And so they're going to go with, hey, I'm going to go with the company or with the PR firm that has that client who will call me back and who will give me an expert source right then and there.
Mm-hmm. So before we get too far into the PR world, you didn't actually start there. I understand you started off in theater.
Yes.
So how do you go from theater to PR?
But if you think about it, theater and PR pretty much mimic it themselves. We just
but you
have a
don't have to wear-
different script every day, and
you
we
don't
have a
have to wear
different
the funny
audience.
clothes.
Exactly. Well, sometimes.
Sometimes.
No, I started off in theater. I wanted to be an actor, except I had very little talent. I didn't know that at the time, and it's amazing how many universities and people will take your money. But I ended up graduating with a degree.
So you were like one of those people on American Idol?
Oh, I wasn't even that talented. Come on.
No, the first couple of shows.
Oh, yes.
Mom and Dad never told them, hey, you're not that good. And they
Oh, but my parents did tell me I wasn't that good. Why don't
Really?
you get a degree in education? Go do something like that.
Have something to fall back on.
It's like, no, I'm an actor.
So, which meant you were a waiter.
Yes, I was a waiter. Great people skills.
So, what did you star in?
Nothing. So there was a few college shows, and I did a few professional shows, but for the most part, I was a starving actor, and then quickly realized that I loved the theater business, and so I got more into the management side. And then from there, I was recruited by the city of Irving at the Irving Arts Center and got to play around there, and that's really was my first touch into public relations and really specifically media relations and getting to work with the media and seeing how they put a story together, which is very similar to theater. You have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
So how did you go from that to forming TrizCom?
Yes, by accident. So from Irving, I went to the Dallas Chamber. And got to work with almost every single CEO in DFW. They were on our board of directors, and it was fun because you would see these people who were worth millions, if not billions of dollars, and they would always look to me and say, how did I do? What could I have done better? And so I would coach them through it, and this is what you can say, this is what you can't say, remember everything is on record, et cetera, et cetera. And then I left the chamber unexpectedly, and it was one of those, well, what do I do now? And literally the day that I left, I had a call from a friend who had been trying to get me to do some work with him, but they were members of the chamber, so it was a little unethical, and I really couldn't take any money, and I offered to come pro bono. And I said, how funny that you call me today, because they had a crisis story come out, a very negative story come out in the news, and they needed some help. It's like, funny that you call me today because I just resigned and I'm free. And he goes, fine, 4:00 at the boardroom. And so that was how TrizCom got started, totally 100% by accident.
So, whenever you did that, how did you know what to charge?
I didn't. I just made up a number that seemed really big to me because I had no agency experience, none. I had no idea what agencies were charging. And I made up a number that seemed reasonable to me per hour. And
they said,
you're hired. So obviously it wasn't high enough.
exactly. I hate that.
So this is interesting. So accidental, almost to the point. I mean, you hear people like, oh, I just happened it, but not just I didn't have a business plan, but really I didn't even know what my competitors were doing or offering.
I had no idea.
Or who
no
they
idea.
were.
Or who they were.
That's awesome.
I didn't even have a name. A couple months into this, I needed business cards because everybody was making fun of my business cards, and they were literally handwritten. All right, I'm in PR. Everything's about presentation.
Sure.
I should know better. I was just so busy. And I called my graphic designer and said, I need business cards. And he goes, well, what's the name of your company? And I go, I don't know. Make one up. I'm too busy.
Wow.
And so it started off as Trizila Communications, very original, I know. And that was just too long. And so it got shortened very quickly to TrizCom.
TrizCom.
So, Trizila, I've never heard that name before. Do you know where that comes from?
It's Polish, but most people think it's Italian.
Huh.
So, because it was shortened by an Italian.
I was thinking more like Transylvania, but whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
not
bad.
funny.
Just
Yeah.
go ahead. Ask a question, Stephen.
So fast forward to today. So who do you guys serve? I mean, how's your business evolved?
Yes. If you would have asked me, when I first started this, where we'd be today, it would not look like what it does. I am so proud of where we are. There's a lot of growing pains.
Sure.
Everybody says, it's so nice not to be your own boss and don't have to report to anybody. I've never reported to more people in my entire life than I have from owning TrizCom. Every client is my boss. We have some fantastic clients all the way from Solus Mammography to Dillengage Metals to Transformance USA to Operation Kindness. You'll see one thing, none of them are similar. And so it makes life so much fun because it's never a dull day.
So, and I saw where you had said that partnership's really important for you with your ideal client, and there's obviously some diversity. So what is your selection criteria to know whether or not someone's going to be a right fit for you guys?
If we communicate the same, and if our expectations are the same. If it's very difficult to promote a client when they don't give you any information. We will never, ever be experts in their field. I will never, ever be a mammography expert. I didn't go to school. I didn't go to med school for that.
Right.
But what I do know is the publications and the outlets that their customers listen and read to. And so I can target those with creative stories. And
Gotcha.
it's the stories that the clients most of the time don't even think about. You know, we had one client said that the majority of his clientele read fly fishing magazine. They were all fly fishers.
Okay.
And I was like, all right, well, let's find a story about fly fishing. And we got him in the publication for fly fishing. Wasn't necessarily about the company, but it was about himself, and it was mentioned that he was the CEO of the company. So being able to look at things 15 different ways and trying to figure out, okay, well, that door didn't work. You're not a Wall Street Journal story, but you may be a Channel 8 story, or you may be a Fox News story.
Do you ever find that you're in conflict on that? Someone thinks they're a national news story and they're Fox local?
Every single day.
Okay.
Well, because everybody ought to be as interested in my company as I am.
Well, I love it when we just launched a new website. Let's get us on the New York Times for a new website. I was like, I'm not even doing a press release on the new website. All right.
So what does constitute what qualifies for a press release?
If it's a good story.
All right, but
I'm
clearly not
right.
qualified to know what that is necessarily for myself.
How does it affect your audience? So a new website, getting there, that can affect your audience. But did you invent something? Did you acquire something? Did you partner with someone? Did you hire somebody of worth that requires that? And not everything requires a press release. That's the thing. A lot of it is me just talking to a reporter saying, hey, I've got a couple of story ideas. What about this? One of my favorite stories, and this will be very quick, is Massage Envy. They were a client for many, many years. And I was in the Tranquility Room, and they had a blind therapist come out. And I thought, ding, 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 ding. Blind therapist. You don't need sight to massage somebody. What a great story.
That's an awesome
and
story.
Sure enough, it went national. And the massage franchise owner actually had 3 legally blind therapists on staff. And he said to me, I never thought that was a story. Yeah. And yet it was a national story.
Very cool. I love seeing that kind of thing, but because it's so unexpected.
It's unexpected, and you normally can't see the forest through the trees as a business owner.
But isn't that what I think people want and care about? But so often we don't get that from the media.
Well, that's why you need somebody from the outside who doesn't know your business to lead you down that path. Why don't we come and talk about this a little more after the break?
Luke 12:48 has often been paraphrased to say, to whom much is given, much will be required. When we come back, we'll discuss what Jo is doing with her success. Stick around.
And now, Confessions of a Recovering Landlord.
This is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty, and I am your recovering landlord. After 20 years as a landlord, I now use that experience only for the benefit of companies that lease or buy office buildings and warehouses. Today's confession, knowledge is power. We all negotiate from a position of power and strength, or at least we want to. In any negotiation, the party with the most knowledge probably has the upper hand. And landlords count on this being the case whenever you're negotiating a lease, because most landlords are professional real estate investors and they hire professional leasing agents and property managers. Landlords are in the market every day negotiating leases, while tenants probably only negotiate 1, maybe 2 leases every few years. So tenants feel outgunned. Don't let landlords have all the power. As a former landlord for 20 years, I understand how landlords think and what motivates them. So let me put that knowledge and experience to work on your side of the negotiation. To learn more, contact me at texastenantrep.com. Again, that's texastenantrep.com.
Have you started making plans to take your business to the next level in 2016? Hi, I'm Stephen Nooner, founder and CEO of Alkali. We have a trademark process called the Empowered Advantage that enables CEOs, business owners, and entrepreneurs to more effectively buy and manage their insurance. Before sitting down to make your plans for the new year, here are just a few things to consider. Would you say that you have an actual insurance strategy, one that you can articulate, or have you just purchased a policy here and there over the years? If you have an insurance strategy, was it discussed under the pressure of a renewal deadline or considered earlier in the year to avoid fire drill decision making? If your answer was no to either of these questions, then you may not have the right partner on your team. Visit alkaliservices.com to contact us and take the next step to a bigger and better future.
Hi, this is Mike Roberts, CEO of Service IT Direct and BizBang.biz. Please join us next week where Bob and Steve are going to attempt to install Microsoft Office. You might want to pack a lunch because I have a feeling that's going to be a very long day.
Welcome back to The Next Level, Conversations That Propel Business. We're here with our guest, Joe I don't even want to hear it, Stephen. Joe Trizila of TrizCom, and you can find more information about her company at TrizCom.com.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Before we went to the break, I actually used a quote from the Bible, from Scripture, that you actually provided. I think this is a really talking about stories, a great story. So why don't you share a little bit about what you're doing with your success?
I think it is so important to give back. We're in a society where we take, and sometimes we forget to give. And as business owners, it is my everyday, how much can we give? And whether that's a pro bono client and helping propel them, or it might even be doing a freebie every now and then for certain companies that can't necessarily afford PR, or it might even be interns. How do we invest in the future? How do we build this? And then finally, it's also giving to our staff, those who build us up every single day, and making sure that they're recognized, they feel value, they see the worth.
Is there a particular nonprofit of any kind that you guys have as an ongoing beneficiary of your pro bono work?
Right now, it's Heroes for Children, heroesforchildren.org, and they provide financial assistance for families who are battling cancer, a child battling cancer.
Oh, wow. That's nice.
And it's a lovely, lovely organization.
Are they national or just local?
Texas,
Okay.
Texas-based. And so they give out millions of dollars to families, and it might even be just gas cards so that the mom and dad can get to the hospital, or it might be, sadly, funeral expenses to help give their child the dignity and the respect of their
So what's their
funeral.
website again?
heroesforchildren.org.
Okay.
And one of the things, that resonated with me and why I wanted to talk about that is I think that too often, as we've been doing the show more and more, I realize that a lot of entrepreneurs are actually very generous, and I don't think that a lot of times that gets discussed. Two things I think don't get discussed about entrepreneurship is, one, there tends to be kind of this demonization of the entrepreneur, and then the other thing is the glamorization where, it looks like it's so easy and wonderful, and TrizCom just popped up. It wasn't, you just literally just happened. There was no work that went involved with that. Just go sign up and you'll be successful.
But you bring up a really good point, because we'll go in and talk to CEOs and chief marketing officers of major companies and find out all the things that they do. Mm-hmm. And they then will say many times, but we don't want to promote this because we don't want to look like we're doing it for that reason.
Right.
Yeah, just
and
for the promo.
And it's all about how you position your story and your messages, because if you need to talk about it, because when you talk about it, not only does it help you, but it helps the organization that you're helping. to be associated with a cause.
It might encourage somebody else to be a part of it.
And the perfect
Absolutely.
example, that Massage Envy, that he didn't even know it was a story. It was right there, right? And it ended up being a national like of interest. So
Okay, so let me ask you a question then about all this. You know, we were talking about press releases before the break, and now we're talking about how to promote, charitable involvement. So there's so many different ways to get the word out on the internet, and so we have tweets, we have Facebook posts, we have a million other places. Snapchats, I don't do that, and I don't even have an Instagram. Anyway, so how do you distinguish what you put out in all these various ways, or when do you even put a article placement in the printed paper? Tell us how to do that.
So that's where PR firms really come in handy. At TrizCom, the first thing we will spend an entire month prior to actually launching a PR campaign and creating a solid messaging map, so that no matter what place that you're talking, whether it be social or newsletter or blogs or in the media, or in an interview, regardless, wherever you're talking, you are saying the exact same message every single time about your company, because you're talking to your audience. You're not talking to a reporter. You're not talking to Facebook. You're talking to your followers. You're talking to your audience, because that's the outlet that your audience reads.
Okay, so, but I always hear that what you put on Twitter is not the same thing you should put on a blog. It's not the same thing you should put in a
It's not the same text, but it's the same message.
Okay.
So we can craft the text differently, but it all has the same theme, the same message.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So one of the things I was going to ask you about was what are you finding to be one of the biggest changes or risks facing your industry right now?
Well, it's not just right now. It's been over the last few years, and that's the internet. It's a blessing and it's a curse.
what do you mean by that?
So let's take a look at the Boston bombings that happened at the marathon a few years ago. Where did it break? It broke by a spectator who was in the crowd and had an iPhone, and that spectator broke it. That spectator had no journalism background, had no credentials whatsoever. They were eyewitness news. And we're finding more and more and more about that. We're seeing more stories break by eyewitnesses. And so when I go in and talk to companies and talk to our clients, have a crisis communications plan in place, because you never know when it's going to break. And most likely it won't break by a journalist. It'll break by an eyewitness person. And we're going to see that happen more and more and more. And even if you want to go into blogs, back in the day were not considered news. We're not considered journalists. Mm-hmm. You could open a blog tomorrow and be a journalist. You didn't go to school to be a writer, but yet you have thousands and thousands of followers. That makes you a journalist.
So what's the impact of that on PR?
It's you just have to be on your toes. You have to have the tactics in place to be able to respond to whether it is a Facebook complaint or a Facebook praise or a tweet or a blog post or a above the fold story in the morning news or the New York Times or Fox News or Channel 8. Being able to respond and be part of that conversation is so imperative. But it takes so much time because there are so many different vehicles in which to be able to tell that.
So you're saying that there's more and more stuff happening all the time, and you just now more than ever you need a game plan because of how quickly things move? That's
exactly right.
And I always hear a lot of people say that in the negativity, the worst thing you can do is ignore it or not respond to it.
99% of the time. There are very few cases where I have said, just sit back. Let's see how this rides. But in most case scenario, it's the company's fault. And the company most of the time will go undercover and not say anything and put their head in the ground instead of just coming right out and saying, hey, you know what? We made a mistake. We're humans.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, many years ago, I was in a situation where the company I was with had a national bad news event, and I was the guy on the ground having to deal with it. And I ended up doing a news conference with all the media there, and I had, all the national news outlets calling for interviews, CNN and all the rest, the morning shows. When do you advise people to do a news conference with a whole bunch of outlets there together versus doing it one at a time or not at all?
It is such a case-by-case situation. It really, really depends. I mean, if the story has legs on it, absolutely, you go out there, because you can't do 25 interviews in 1 hour. It's impossible. But the worst thing to do is to do a news conference and only one outlet show up.
Well, but my experience was with that news outlet, or with that news conference, all the reporters sort of fed off each other and tried to one-up each other. And it boiled down to that they didn't really care so much what the facts were. They were looking for somebody to nail.
Sure.
They wanted an individual's name.
You are a representative of that company. Your receptionist could have been a representative of your company. But if you have a plan in place, a start and an end time, make it very short, especially in a crisis, and have your facts, state them, answer one or two questions, maybe not even answer any questions at all. Just come out and make your position known, and then walk away.
In a business like yours, just out of curiosity, where do you have to focus most to stay on track? Because, I mean, stories I'm sure are all over. Crises are constantly happening. So what do you have to, in order to have a viable business for yourself and your employees, where do you focus most or need to focus most?
For me, running the company, it's focusing on retention and new business.
Retention of clients and new business. Is there specific activities you've got to be making sure that you're doing that you tend to struggle with more than others? Or
gosh, if I could narrow it down, I'd be a millionaire. No, it's just every day is different, and whatever pulls in which direction and which outlet to go to.
But how do you make that sale if you're not working with a particular company right now, but you know that they need some PR and they need to be prepared for PR, but they don't seem to have a need at the moment. How do you walk in the door and make that case?
We can offer freebies. We can offer, hey, this journalist is looking for a story. Here, I'm not charging you for this. Here you go. It's a lot of cold calls, but I tell you what, 99% of our business comes from referrals.
That's good.
It's a definite blessing. So what's next?
Just continue to tell stories and find new avenues to tell them and new ways to tell them, and new clients, and help mitigate the crises.
Yeah, I mean, PR is all about trying to get the good news out so that when the bad news comes, you have credibility.
You hit the nail right on the head.
So we need to get ahead of the curve. Well, Joe, thanks so much for being our guest today. We've really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
For our guests, please go to TrizCom.com to learn more about
Good job.
her. Thank you for not jumping on me earlier. I know you wanted to. If you want to know more about the show, please go to nextlevelshow.com. And, of course, you can always find us on social media, and we'll be back next week with another great guest.
Have a great week.
You have been listening to The Next Level, Conversations That Propel Business with Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons. Join us every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. for more prolific conversations that will take your business to the next level.